Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hoops and Huddles. And what a game! The Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Memphis Grizzlies in Game 1 of the NBA playoffs. And man, there is so much to talk about. It is a crazy, crazy day and an awesome day to be a Lakers fan. First thing I wanted to talk about overall was the injuries, man. This makes or breaks the season. If Anthony Davis wasn't able to come back after that arm injury, we'd be having a completely different conversation. It could very well be a 4-game series, at best a 5-game series. I was stunned that he was able to come back. The guy, it looked like he had his arm dislocated. He couldn't move it, but props to him for fighting through it. He looked sharp. He looked better as the game progressed in the second half. And overall, he just absolutely dominated. I think he finished with 7 blocks. I mean, defensively, this guy is a black hole, bro. You cannot get shots up around him. He will swat them away. He will contest them. He is the entire Lakers defense for the most part. I mean, I know everyone can have has their moments. I'm going to talk about LeBron's defense in a second, but man, what an absolutely astounding performance from Anthony Davis. Really, truly phenomenal. I have nothing but glowing things to say about him. Everyone's talking about he needs to be more aggressive, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, he may not have been the most aggressive this time around, but looking at just how dominant he was on the defensive end and how he was able to get some good shots on the offensive end, this guy is such a key for this offense. But regarding the injuries, I mean, now we have to look at the injuries for Ja Morant. Because, out of all the teams in the playoffs that can sustain an injury to their star player, I mean, we've seen Memphis is probably the most equipped to do it, but I don't think they're winning a championship without Ja Morant. And, I don't want to, we don't know what the details are in that injury, so I don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than it is. But when you've seen his fingers bend like that, I mean, I know some people that are double jointed and they can make their fingers do that, but man, I could, my fingers would be gone if that happens. So it's it sucks. Injuries are the worst part of any sport. I just don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to the whatever we get injury update wise on Ja Morant, and I think that's going to dictate the rest of this series. I mean, it's disappointing that let's say the Lakers do win and Ja Morant doesn't play. It's you kind of dismiss this greatness that we're seeing because it's man, they don't have their best player. It's frustrating. So I mean, I do hope that he can stay healthy. This is this would be the second year in a row where it's the Memphis Grizzlies have been eliminated due to injury. So if that's the case, I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, look, when Anthony Davis went to the locker room, and then they cut to the halftime show, and Stephen A. Smith is just going ballistic. It's that the knives will come out for Ja Morant sooner rather than later if injuries start to, derail his career, similar to what's happening with Zion. But man, it's super disappointing when that happens. I really hope he's back for Game 2. Obviously, as a fan of the Lakers, it's he scares the hell out of me, but you just don't want to win that way. It's not fair to the fans. It's not good for the league. I do hope that he has a speedy recovery. One of the things I wanted to touch on was actually regarding LeBron James. This was one of the quietest playoff games I've seen from him in a long time. I think he scored 21 points. So 21 points. I'm looking at it right now. But it was I don't know, it was a disappointment. I mean, he was able to get some putbacks, but it's weird that his game is turning into almost some sort of 3-and-D player. I mean, that's all he really did today. I mean, he was great contesting shots. He had some great blocks as well. I think he had 3 or 4 blocks. And that's great. I mean, defensively, I've always thought LeBron is underrated. There was that huge push in 2018 and 2019, he doesn't play defense properly. I still remember when that viral clip of Kyle Kuzma pushing him to play defense, and people are oh man, this is embarrassing. We can't expect this from the GOAT and blah, blah, blah. But I think his defense, when he is locked in, is still absolutely elite. I said it in my last video talking about, I think it was the play-in game. His defense is great, but my question is man, do we really need this guy taking 8-9 threes a game? LeBron is like a very streaky shooter. There's some moments where he can get hot and it's awesome to watch, but like the bread and butter of his game is supposed to be driving. And what worries me is like this is an age thing. I've noticed a lot this season, more than I've ever noticed it before. When he's driving, it's kind of like a quick pass, like a give and go, right? He passes it so he can kind of cut, and then he gets the ball back and drives. He's having serious trouble getting around, like just one-on-one off the dribble, driving past certain players. I hope it's, maybe it's the foot. I hope it's not just age. I mean, I don't want this guy to ever age, unfortunately, but that's just a part of life. But that's what I've noticed with him. It's like does not have that driving ability that he once had. And so I think, if I'm LeBron James and my goal is to keep playing at a high level, I need to keep evolving my game. And is this the next evolution we see from him? He's going to be like a high volume 3-point shooter, which is something when he's locked in, he actually is a very good 3-point shooter. I know the stats don't always show that, but I watched enough games from him where he can get like crazy hot from 3, and he can really do some damage that way if he chooses to. And he did today. Like he was 3 of 8 today, which is fine. I mean, if he's going to try and take that role of like a 3-and-D player, he needs to shoot better than that. But he impacts the game in so many ways. There's a lot of like things that you can't even see that he does, like just how the defense has to play around him, and like his playmaking overall. It's like he's just one of those players that like kind of defies what we can see with the stat lines. And I mean, it's great to see that he still has that. But I don't want to bury the lead any further than this. We got to talk about Rui Hachimura and Austin Reaves, because man, like Rui has had flashes. There's moments where he wasn't even, like, he was in and out of the lineup. Like, Darvin Ham wasn't even really utilizing him. But I knew this pretty early on in his Lakers tenure. His ability to kind of get into the paint and, create those mid-range shots, those ISO mid-range shots, that's going to be crucial in the playoffs. But that's not where he shined today. The guy hit 5 consecutive 3-pointers that blew this game open. Like, they could not. If you're the Grizzlies coaching staff, you're letting him shoot those, because he's not a high volume 3-point shooter. He doesn't shoot a crazy percentage. I promise you, he's not going to do this again for the rest of the series. You're going to give him those shots because he just doesn't hit those in terms of his career averages. But he did today, and it was absolutely crazy. It infused the entire Lakers team with so much energy. And while he was doing that throughout the third quarter, Austin Reaves in the fourth, I mean, same sort of thing. He was just hitting everything. Just those weird dribble moves where it's like you don't know where he's going with the ball, but he finds his way to the rim. His 3-point shooting, like, what a crazy tandem. And it's like this is gonna sound extreme, but like I feel like we could be watching, especially in Austin Reaves' case, like Lakers legends in the making. Like, this is how you make a name for yourself. The fact that he managed to come in, this is his first, if you don't count the play-in, this is his first playoff game, and to shine like this, I mean, absolutely crazy. Both him and Rui Hachimura are going to be key pieces on this team if they make a deep playoff run. And I couldn't be happier for both of them. I mean, Austin Reaves, he was brilliant last year. I mean, obviously he was still young. He still had a lot to learn, but he's just been exceptional in his second year with the Lakers. And like Rui, like I said before, he was bouncing in and out of the lineup. He had some good games. He had some bad games. To see him have this sort of breakout performance, I can't imagine the feeling he has in that locker room right now. Like, and Darvin Ham's got to be singing this guy's praises. I mean, it was really great for him. Another good note was D'Angelo Russell. We heard a lot about playoff D'Lo going into the play-in game, and he was so bad in the playoff game. That was the worst game I'd ever seen from him. It was looking like we were trending in that direction. And then to open this game, he's given 2 wide-open 3-point shots, like wide open, and he misses them both. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, like this is not a good sign. He's still like, maybe he's folding under the pressure, maybe he's just, it's in his head, so on and so forth. But, he was able to slowly pick up some momentum, slowly pick up steam. He was able to get into the paint a few times. He got some absolutely absurd layups. And then he started to hit some mid-range shots, and like you could see his confidence was building. And then he started to hit some threes. I think he hit 2 or 3 of them as well. And it's like, this is, if the Lakers are to win a championship this year, they need D'Lo to be D'Lo. And he was able to turn that on. So props to him for overcoming that. I know there's, for players, when you're told constantly that you're not a good playoff performer, and to feel that constantly, it takes a lot of mental strength to kind of break out of that. So, like I said, props to him. I'm happy for him and everything. I don't want to take anything away from his performance. I know Austin Reaves and Rui did great, but I think we also need to highlight just how well D'Angelo Russell played in this whole thing. And if he can continue this going forward, I mean, he is going to be a key piece for this team. To talk about the Grizzlies for a bit, I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr., he had a phenomenal game. I know he's going to be pissed because this is his second game where he scored 30-plus points, and second playoff game, where he scored 30-plus points and they lose. And it's like, man, like you have that sort of performance and you still lose. I mean, that is definitely disheartening. Desmond Bane played well. Luke Kennard, I was terrified of this guy going into this game because Luke Kennard has a history of torching the Lakers, like back when he was on the Clippers. This guy does not miss from 3. I think he missed like a wide open 3 at one point. I was pretty surprised. Overall, he didn't shoot that well. And when he's not shooting well, he's such a defensive liability. It's like it's hard to justify him being on the floor. But you do want to keep him out there because there are those games where he can just explode from 3. He had a great game against the Clippers. He had another phenomenal game recently. I'm drawing a blank on who it was against, but this guy is a force. And the Lakers, whatever they did, it worked. So if you're a part of that Lakers coaching staff, you do not want to make any changes to how you're guarding Luke Kennard, unless, of course, the Grizzlies change something up. And finally, the last thing I wanted to touch on was the culture in that Lakers locker room. Like, you can see it on the sidelines. It's like that. It reminds me so much of the 2020 Lakers. Like, they just have such a good energy about them. They have such a good vibe. It looks like everyone's gelling. Obviously, when you're hitting shots, it's always great in any locker room. But it just seems like post-trade deadline, they've really had like a new swagger about them. And I think that is such a telling thing going into a postseason. If you're going to make a postseason run, like, they really do look like a cohesive unit. Anyways, overall, that's my takeaway from the first game between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Los Angeles Lakers. It was a great game. A lot of it, like I said, I think is going to come down to Ja Morant's health. And, Anthony Davis, if he has another scare like that, I mean, God forbid, right? I hope he can get healthy. But yeah, what a phenomenal game. And I'm looking forward to game 2. I think that's in a couple of days. They get some time off, which is good for them. Now I'm just looking forward to Suns Clippers because I think that has a potential to be a great series as well. Like I've said in previous videos, this set of first round matchups in the West has been great. And the schedule is just perfect. And I look forward to doing more videos on that. So anyways, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later.